Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine. And on this edition of the show, it's another of our popular segment, number one hits from the 1980s. And on this edition, we'll be talking about the number one hit by Prince from 1989, Batdance. Now imagine the face of that person when that person learned that, sure, Prince was ready for the task. Now imagine the scene at a Warner Brothers board meeting where someone announced that Prince had in fact written an entire album that would tie in with the new Batman movie, that Prince was down to do the cross-promotional dance music to. Now, Prince said no often, and when people brought ideas to him, he wasn't shy about shooting those ideas down. But when Warner Brothers revved up its promotional machine behind the movie Batman, the biggest hit movie of 1989, mind you, Prince was simply happy to be part of the whole process. He made an entire Batman album, and that album served as a piece of Batman merchandising. One more thing that would help make the movie absolutely inescapable to anyone alive in the world during the summer of 1989. Now, functionally, a Prince Batman album wasn't all that different from a, say, plastic action figure of some sort of cartoon character. And wherever you went to any kind of store in 1989, you would see something that would remind you that Batman was, in fact, in theaters. Prince's album was part of that effort, and it stands today as one of the strangest, perhaps, cultural artifacts of that strange cultural era. Batdance was Prince's fourth number one single, and it wasn't a dance, it was barely a song. It's a stitched together 5 to 6 minute piece of music that's full of Batman samples, dialogues, and clips that Batman director Tim Burton had basically rejected. And it's virtually impossible to judge Batdance as a standalone piece of music because Batdance was never intended as a standalone piece of music. Instead, it's a marketing tool, but it's Prince's version of a marketing tool, so it's a compelling marketing tool. Batman was always going to be a huge movie. It was essentially too big to fail. Warner put an insane marketing push behind their 1989 blockbuster. The iconic poster design, for example, just the Batman logo with no further images, burned itself into people's imaginations. They couldn't wait for it. I was one of those people. And for a minute there, people were getting the Bat insignia shaved into the back of their heads. It was a whole thing. And I don't know how much of that marketing push was underway when Warner contacted Prince to participate. But Prince must have known that big things were definitely in the works. Now, maybe that's why he was open to the idea of being a part of it. Prince was all over the pop charts in the late 1980s. Many people wanted to record with him, of course. A generous handful of the biggest and best hits of the late 1980s came out of Minneapolis. But Prince himself wasn't directly involved in many of them. Instead, he was like a ghost, an absence. Michael Jackson wanted Bad to be a Jackson-Prince duet, believe it or not. Prince said no. Prince didn't want to say no to Madonna, but when he played some guitar on her number one smash, Like a Prayer, he went uncredited. Now, believe it or not, in the summer of 1989, Prince probably needed a hit. At that point, it had been more than 3 years since his last number one hit, Kiss, was a big hit. Under the Cherry Moon, Prince's second cinematic vehicle after Purple Rain, had flopped tremendously. And his 1987 concert film, Sign of the Times, hadn't done well at the box office. And there were other causes for concern too. Prince had dissolved The Revolution, his iconic Purple Rain era backing band. He recorded a 1987 LP called The Black Album. And then, after it had already been pressed up, he decided that the record was evil and that it couldn't be released. Instead, Prince came out with Lovesexy in the spring of 1988, and it was the first Prince album since 1980's Dirty Mind that failed to sell 1 million copies. Artistically, Prince was still capable of doing great things. In 1987, though, he came out with the sprawling, beautifully messy in parts, but revered to this day, Sign of the Times. These days, when we're talking about Prince's best album, Purple Rain is the consensus pick, but Sign of the Times from 1987 is at least in the conversation. Sign of the Times also had hits. It launched 3 singles into the top 10. The title cut peaked at number 3 on the pop charts. You Got the Look peaked at number 2, the duet with the uncredited at that time, Sheena Easton, and I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man peaked at number 10. Even Lovesexy, a complete niche album by Prince's lofty standards, managed to generate 1 hit, the fantastic song Alphabet Street, which hit number 8 pop, number 3 R&B. Prince was a mercurial figure who never seemed driven towards overwhelming commercial dominance, believe it or not. He had famously skipped We Are the World, the recording session that I talked about on another episode of this show, and he had veered away to go partying. He had also stepped away from the stadium status pop funk of Purple Rain into the florid psychedelia of the 1985 album Around the World in a Day, when he could have been cementing his status as a mover of records. But that was his creative mind. Prince had been one of the most foundational figures in pop music still, and during a time when pop music had existed at the center of the cultural conversation. Maybe he had noticed that he had somewhat slipped away from that spot. Maybe he missed it. But whatever the case, when the Batman opportunity arose, Prince took it. A few years after Batman, Prince would be locked into a famously bitter legal feud with Warner Brothers. In 1989, though, Warner considered Prince to be part of the family. Warner reached out to Prince through Albert Magnoli, the Purple Rain director who, at the time, served as Prince's manager. Magnoli sold Prince on the idea, and later that same year, Warner would hire Magnoli as the replacement director on their troubled action flick Tango and Cash, with Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone. Early in 1989, while Batman was filming, Prince flew to London, where he met with Tim Burton, another creative guy in the vein of Prince, who was on a serious hot streak. Prince and Burton got along, and Burton, who had been using Prince songs as a temporary score, found parts of the movie where new Prince songs may fit perfectly. Those scenes worked. The bit where, say, Jack Nicholson's Joker character struts into an art museum, destroying priceless masterworks while dancing to the top 20 pop hit Party Man, is also hard to forget. And while on the set, Prince also met Kim Basinger, a future Oscar winner who at that time played Vicky Vale in the movie Batman. Prince and Basinger quickly got into a torrid affair by all accounts, and according to a Page 6 report from 2016, Basinger, whose first marriage hadn't officially ended yet, moved to Minneapolis to be with Prince. And at the time, Prince helped Basinger record an album which never came out. Later on, Prince also released a remix of Scandalous, one of the top 10 R&B hits from that movie, one of his Batman songs, which supposedly included the sound of him and Basinger having sex in the studio. In any case, nobody expected Prince to record an entire album for Batman, but Tim Burton didn't want a Prince score for Batman. He had already made 2 movies, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, with scores from the 80s outfit Oingo Boingo frontman Danny Elfman, and he wanted Elfman to be his guy. Side note, Oingo Boingo's highest charting single, 1985's Weird Science, peaked at number 45 on the charts. But Burton made the right decision in hindsight. The Danny Elfman score is classic, and in the end, Warner wanted 2 Batman albums, the soundtrack album from Prince and the score from Danny Elfman. Now, many of the songs on Prince's Batman album don't actually appear in the movie, and one of them is Batdance. Prince put together Batdance at the last minute, believe it or not, using pieces of songs that Burton had rejected. Batdance is essentially a smashed together mashup collage of stuff from the cutting room floor, and it's full of samples of the Batman dialogue, which Prince took from a working print of the film. Those parts really don't make sense together. And as a piece of music, Batdance is pretty incoherent, even though some of those pieces are undeniably funky. There's a head-spinning tingly bell intro, a nasty guitar solo, and a strutting groove that comes in when the song turns its attention to Kim Basinger's character, Vicky Vale. Prince would sing, ooh yeah, I want to bust that body. Then he busted that body. Prince barely sings in Batdance, and in the video, he lip syncs to the movie samples more than to his own voice. Essentially, the track Batdance was just a great marketing tool that just happened to be a popular song. Really, that's the only way you can understand it. It sounds like a coked out 12-inch remix with a few actual songs cut together with sound effects. In this case, though, we don't get the actual pieces of music, the actual songs. The track ends abruptly after about 6 minutes with a clip of Michael Keaton, the Batman character, simply saying, "Stop." He's doing us a mercy because there's no reason for Batdance to really last that long. And the fact that Batdance made it to #1 is a testament to the hold that Batman and Prince had over a whole lot of imaginations. And maybe we all just really wanted to hear Michael Keaton saying that he's Batman a bunch of times.
I'm Batman.
Or maybe everyone just liked the video, which is truly weird. Albert Magnoli directed the clip in which Prince plays a character that he called the Gemini, split down the middle hybrid of Batman and the Joker, and it really worked for the video. Prince basically threw himself into the absolute silliness with total commitment, locking into the choreography with all the dancers dressed as Batman, Jokers, and Vicky Vale characters. And the set is full of dry ice and gothic architecture, and it almost works as an aesthetic bridge between the campy 1960s ABC TV series Batman.
We hate to sound a sour note, Joker,
But it's time for us to make our own collection. Destroy them!
And the Burton take, almost 20 years later, on the character.
Excuse me. Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
By all accounts, the Batman soundtrack was the smash that Prince needed, and the album spent 6 weeks at #1, and it became the first Prince album since Around the World in a Day 4 years earlier to go double platinum. Batman didn't ascend to #1 until August of 1989, after Batman had already been out in theaters for more than a month. The week that Batdance was at #1, the biggest movie in America was Turner and Hooch. Two other family comedies, Parenthood and Uncle Buck, would rule the box office in the weeks that followed. And Prince brought back the Gemini character for the deeply silly video for the second single, Party Man. That track only hit #18, and he didn't make a video for The Arms of Orion, a slow churning duet with Sheena Easton, but that single still made it to #36 on the charts. Superstars write songs for big movies all the time. And a lot of the time, those songs turn out to be big hits. Plenty of them could have been talked about in this episode of Dr. Pundit, but very few of those songs are as weird as Batdance. Batdance isn't a good song, mostly because it's more marketing. Like I said, it's more of a marketing stunt than a song at all accounts, but its audacity is still something of a marvel. And as marketing, it worked. It still works. I kind of want to watch Batman right now. How weird is that? Rest in peace, Prince Rogers Nelson. I'm Michael Douglas, and if you like what you see here on Dr. Pundit, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. That does it for another #1 hit recount of a song from the 1980s. And as the late great Barry White used to say, let the music play, and I'll be back for another episode of Dr. Pundit.